Stories that are important to our community in and around Ocala. Plus, of course, a splash of sports as well. Now, here's your host, Tom.
Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to Ocala Talks with Tom Schmitz on a hump day. It's also Inauguration Day, as the 46th President of the United States will be sworn into office, along with Vice President Kamala Harris becoming the first African-American woman to be sworn in, first woman, period, to be sworn in. I don't know that she says African-American. I'm not real sure that's the correct heritage, but that's what she says. But she will be the first woman sworn into the office of Vice President. On the phone lines with me is a guy who has experienced a few inaugurations in his lifetime, because we're getting up there in age. So we've seen a couple of these. Galen Unall from Life South. Galen, it seems we're a long way from Geraldine Ferraro running with Walter Mondale in 1984.
Yeah, we are. But, there'll be a peaceful transition of power, and hopefully nothing gets out of hand up there, and we can just go about our day.
I lost my headset.
Well, we'll see. It's interesting you talked about Kamala and her heritage. She changes it. It depends on the group. So I've always
she could be Jamaican, she could be Indian, or she could be African American.
Yeah, right. And Tiger Woods did the same thing for a while.
He was Remember, he was Cablaisian.
Yeah, Cablinasian or whatever.
He was Cablaisian, Caucasian, Black, and Asian.
And again, you can be whatever you want to be, so it doesn't matter.
The new Deputy Secretary of Health.
Oh, boy.
Proves that. You can be anything you want to be.
Speaking of that, one of the things that Biden has promised to do is to really help trans athletes. So athletes who, a man who becomes a woman, he believes they have every right to play any sport as the sex that they want to be recognized as.
He is categorically wrong.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty fascinating as to see the impact that's going to have. The IOC has already decided they're going to do that, and so it's already destroying, the weightlifting records and some of the track and field records that women hold currently. So
who knew that when me and two of my buddies emulated the Bud Light commercial from the late 80s and early 90s, when we would dress in dresses to go to ladies' night at the Collegiate Bar in Statesboro, Georgia, so we too could get the ladies' night penny beer, goofing like we did with the Bud Light commercials, that 30-some-odd years later, that would be the norm, not just a gag joke.
Yeah, and it's where we're at, I guess, as a society. I think we're going to have to decide. A lot of these things is whether or not they're going to be allowed in high school is going to be decided by state. But if you have a 15-year-old daughter and she's going against a 15-year-old boy, and you're playing basketball, right, or swimming, or track and field, there's such a massive advantage there.
Could you imagine?
It's tough.
Could you imagine? Let's take a 15-year-old kid. Let's take a 15-year-old kid that at 15 was 5'9", about 185 pounds, could hit a fastball probably, upwards of 350, 400 feet, had warning track power at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium when he got to hit a baseball there at the age of 15, which was a big thrill for him. Let's take that 15-year-old kid and say he identifies as a woman because fast pitch softball, he could really be a standout star and get a scholarship offer to a university or something. Tom Schmitz would probably not have played football. He'd have played girls softball.
Right, and I don't think people understand the long-term impact. I mean, there's so much evidence that supports that, women who play athletics are just more successful in life. It lowers teen pregnancy. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And everything to Title IX, and not everybody was for Title IX at the beginning. I'm still not 100% in agreement with everything Title IX has done. But if Biden pushes that legislation through, it will destroy Title IX. It just will.
It will destroy it. Think about this. A young Landon Donovan decides to identify as a woman. Now,
Sure.
Do we know who Mia Hamm is then?
Right.
I mean,
you have 11 dudes.
Landon Donovan and his buddies would be the U.S. women's soccer team, not Mia Hamm and her, not Mia Hamm, not Abby Wambach. Could Abby Wambach play with the world?
Maybe.
Could she play with the best men in the world? But could she play with the best men in the world?
No.
She's not outplaying Lionel Messi.
Team.
She's not outplaying Lionel Messi.
And to put that into perspective, the women's national team lost to a select team in Dallas, Texas. That were it was a U14 select team, and they lost 6-2.
Yeah, an under 14 boys team beat the U.S. national women's team, who is the cream of the crop in women's soccer.
Correct. And you could argue they're the most dominant sports team in the world right now.
You could argue that. That would be there's no argument there. They are the most dominant sports team. They're more dominant than any of the NBA basketball teams because the world's caught up in basketball. These women are the top of their field, and a 14 and under boys soccer team beat them.
It was interesting. Martina Navratilova, who is, been at the forefront of gay and lesbian rights forever, came out and said, that trans athletes should play in the sport that they're born as. And she was ripped and ridiculed and kicked off of boards that she was on and called, basically a racist. And,
a traitor to her own, exactly.
A traitor, yeah. And that's where we're at as a society. And I find it hard to believe. I mean, if you want to get a surgery to manipulate your body parts, go ahead. But I don't think that gives you carte blanche to do whatever the heck you want, whenever you want.
Unless you're getting a surgery to take away the muscle structure of a man, there's still going to be an advantage. No matter what parts you get made into lady parts or man's parts, you can't hide from the fact that triceps and biceps and quad muscles and all. And people go, well, what about these lady bodybuilders? It's not. They don't have the athletic ability. There is something. The male anatomy is whether you like it or not. It's more muscular, and it will outdo a woman's muscular abilities in a sporting event almost every time. There are exceptions, don't get me wrong, but people always point to, remember, Tom, Billie Jean King? Billie Jean King was in the prime of her career. Bobby Riggs was a loudmouth, washed-up 60-year-old.
Well, and that was a made-for-TV event.
Of course it was.
There was no way he was going to win. So, there's all kinds of talk about who could Serena Williams beat, right? John McEnroe got in trouble because he said she wouldn't be even ranked in the top 200 in tennis. So, and again, you have to be very careful as to what kind of criticism you give because there's such a protected class now.
Well,
it's kind of sad. And let's be clear. Usually the Serena Williamses of the world, like Michelle Wu, she wanted to play on the men's tour.
How'd that work
out for her? She's
done it a few
times.
She almost made the U.S. Open. She almost qualified for the U.S. Open, but she went to play in the John Deere Classic and all missed the cuts. Ask Annika Sorenstam, the best female golfer on the planet for probably a 6 or 7 year period. Sure. She tried to go play against the men. How'd that work out for her?
Yeah, and I have no problem with that, right? I don't know if the LPGA wants to open it up and say anyone of any sex can compete, fine, right? Fine.
Yeah.
And the Tom Schmitz can go over there and say, "Look at me."
Yeah. Here's the thing.
I'm pulling a Kramer and taking a karate class with a bunch of 11-year-olds.
Exactly. That's what it looks like. That's what it's like to me, is the Seinfeld episode where Kramer takes his karate class with a bunch of 8 and 9-year-olds. And it's just, he's far superior, even though he's not even close to an athlete. He's far superior to these little kids.
I would be in the top 25, top 10%, let's say, of driving distance, and I'm 50 years old.
Oh, 100%. Here's the thing. The LPGA
I haven't looked
Tour,
at the numbers in a while.
The LPGA Tour plays between 6,500 and 6,800 yards.
Sure.
The men's tour plays between 7,400 and 8,000 yards. And if you don't understand the game of golf, that 600 or 700 yard difference is everything. Could you imagine if Dustin Johnson got to play from 6,600 yards all the time?
He would drive every par 4.
He would.
Every par 5 would be reachable in 2. Every par 5.
He would go par 5. He'd go driver, sand wedge on the par 5s.
Yeah, 8 iron at most.
He would probably have to hit a rescue club on some of the par 4s that just weren't, because of how the layout was. He wasn't able to put the ball where he needed to. I mean, it would just, people say, well, no, because you can move up one, because we do this in the OMGA, is we have a tournament every year that we play. The last tournament of the year, we play from the ladies' tees, from the yellow tees, just to change it up. And you would think, because we're all men and we're used to playing from the tips and the blues, that our scores would be much better from the yellow tees. They're not. But that's because we're amateur golfers. We're not professionals. You give a professional the opportunity to play from up tees, and they're going to shoot the lights out of it.
Sure.
There would be, if you allow men on the LPGA Tour, you will find men that are languishing around the 125 cutoff, which is where you get for your PGA card. You would find men that no longer play on the whatever the .com tour, whatever the name of it is this year, Corn Ferry Tour, I think it is, whatever the name of it this year. Those guys go down there and play. They could make more money on the LPGA Tour. So they would just, instead of going down, we didn't get our PGA card? Well, we'll just go over here to the women's tour and play, and they would all be ranked in the top 30, 40 on the tour. Period.
Yeah. And again, he's stated he's going to make this. He's going to write a proclamation or whatever. Apparently, his first day he's going to do like 10 things, and I'm like, oh boy, Paris Accords. He's going to give citizenship to everybody who's here by January 1st. And give trans the ability to play any sport they want. That's great.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss, speaking of women in sports, there's a milestone that ESPN seems to want to make a big deal of. I'll talk with Galen Unall about that next. Talk to him about that next. This is Ocala Talks with Tom Schmitz. Galen Unall from Life South joins us thanks to the good folks at Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center, located at 2700 34th Street. They offer skilled nursing, physical, occupational, and speech therapy. If you have any questions how they're handling COVID-19, give Palm Gardens a call, 352-854-6262. That's 352-854-6262.
Hi, this is JP from Penn Flooring here in Ocala. I would like to invite you to come in and visit our spacious showroom where we have solutions for every style and budget. From wall-to-wall carpet to hardwood floors and tiles, we have an unsurpassed selection of flooring. At Penn Flooring, we've provided quality customer service with a family touch for over 25 years. Visit our website at pennflooring.com or come by our showroom, 1201 Southwest 17th Street, just over the bridge. Penn Flooring, quality customer service with a family touch.
Now you did it. Are you completely insane? He's back. He, who must not be named. The man, the myth. The only guy in Ocala to eat his own weight in fried pickles. Twice. Now, you asked for it. Sorta. Live and in person. It's Tom Schmitz.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks. Galen Unall from Life South, brought to you by the good folks at Penn Flooring and Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center, joins us on the phone lines. We've been talking about the inauguration today and the steps that President-elect, soon-to-be President Joe Biden is going to take in his first few minutes in office. The NFL is really championing what is going to take place this year in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And it's killing me that they're doing this. The best referee is a referee I don't know is involved in the game. That's the best referee to me, is one that you don't know is there, because that means they're doing their job well. Well, you're going to know Sarah Thomas is there because they're really hyping it up that she's the first female official to ever officiate a Super Bowl. Why do I care? She does a good job. I've followed her career. She's a very good official. Why do I care she's doing a Super Bowl?
Well, in her defense, she doesn't think this. She doesn't want to make this.
No, she doesn't at all. She doesn't like this at all. She has turned down interview after interview after interview. So yeah, and she does do a good job. And again, you're right. The officials that you kind of recognize, but you don't know who they are. They're the good ones. Like, oh yeah, all right, they did it. That was a good call. And you kind of remember their face, but you have no idea who they are. Those are the kinds we want. You know why we know Ed Hockley's name? Because he was jacked.
And he was terrible. And he blew a bunch of calls.
He blew a ton of calls.
So, yeah. Again, it's the Super Bowl, and they have 7.5 hours of pregame coverage to fill. So they'll they'll probably do 3 or 4 different stories on her.
Everybody says, how do you remember Red Shandy's? Because he said first down, and he was horrible.
Yeah, he sure was. Sure was.
That's how.
But then again, all of them are. I
mean, I know Sarah Thomas.
Basketball game. Go ahead.
I know Sarah Thomas because she has a nice ponytail that you see bopping around when she's refereeing. Other than that, I think she's a great referee because I'd never see any controversy she calls. And that's a good referee,
Correct.
In my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. I was at a basketball game in Dunellen on Monday night, and the 3 officials walk out. And I'm like, oh, these 3 guys are terrible. And the guy next to me is like, well, they're all terrible. I'm like, yeah, but these guys are especially terrible. And he goes, well, okay. And then halfway through, he goes, man, they are terrible. I said, I told you they're terrible.
Yeah.
All officials are terrible.
I'll be honest with you. It really took a lot for me to dig down and be nice to Sarah Thomas. I'm going to be honest with you.
I mean, she doesn't do a bad job. She's not out there seeking it. So I don't have a problem with it.
She's no what's his name? Angel Hernandez, is that his name? The baseball umpire? Or Joe West. Oh, that guy.
Sure.
Country Joe West. Remember Country Joe West?
Joe West.
He had a country album and he would promote it and everything. And he's the worst.
He was terrible.
Ugh.
He was terrible. And again, there are really good officials who just make a bad call. And that, guess what? You're human. I have no problem with that. It's when you're inconsistently bad. That's what I have a problem with. If you're going to call something a foul, call it a foul every single time. That's all.
Yeah. Who's the mean-spirited NBA referee that Joey?
Oh yeah, Crawford.
Joey Crawford.
No.
That guy's
right,
horrible.
Yeah.
That guy's horrible.
Well,
so,
hey, the one sport you never want to bet on is regular season basketball.
Oh, no.
I think it's all fixed.
Let me ask you this: Did you receive your pardon last night? Oh no, you're not a convicted felon.
No, I did. I'm not a felon.
Yeah.
No, and I found it funny. I'm sure Trump was trying to get can I pardon myself for future crimes? Or,
well, 143 pardons last night issued last night. He did not issue any pardons for any family members nor himself, though.
He couldn't, because all they have to do is, oh, you did something wrong. Now we're going to go find out what you did wrong.
But he did pardon Steve Bannon, who, by the way, Steve Bannon, the 1970s called "Get a Haircut." They want their hair back.
That's his look.
And here's the one that got
That's
me.
his look.
Convicted felon, just was sentenced to another 10 years in prison for being in possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, but now he's got clemency. Are you aware who I'm talking about?
No.
Lil Wayne.
I knew he was talking about it.
Donald Trump pardoned Lil Wayne yesterday.
Lil Wayne's been public about his support of Trump, and the one thing Trump loves above all else is if you're somebody
Loyalty.
who loves Donald Trump, and it's not loyalty, it's blind loyalty.
Right, exactly.
No matter what Trump says, you have to back. That's why he loves Giuliani. Giuliani's going to go to jail because of Trump. But,
The man
follow him to the gallows until he dies, and then Trump goes, I didn't really like Giuliani. I didn't think he was that good of a guy.
How far has that guy's reputation crumbled? We're talking about a guy that in 2001 was thought of as a better person in handling of the 9/11 crisis than the president of the country at the time, George Bush. Giuliani was the rock. He was the guy that held New York together. He was lauded as the guy who got the Big Apple through the terrorist attacks of 9/11. And now he's just thought of some kooky old guy that does whatever Trump tells him to do.
Well, he hitched his wagon to the wrong dude. That's what happens. If you hitch your wagon to the wrong guy, sometimes that guy takes you down. I mean,
let me ask you
Giuliani,
this.
in his defense, is a ride or die guy. I mean,
Yeah. And let me ask you this:
Who
who has more of your respect? Because Giuliani has more of mine, and I'm gonna tell you why. Who has more of your respect? A guy like Giuliani who rides or dies? Or guys like Mitch McConnell, who we love the President Trump. We're behind him 100%. And now that he knows Trump's on his way out of office, he was a horrible guy. He's the reason they stormed the Capitol. Just turned a 180. And people go, I can't believe Mitch McConnell did that. And I go, what do you mean? Mitch McConnell hated Donald Trump in 2015. He dealt with Donald Trump in the way he thought he had to as a politician. But as soon as he realized Donald Trump wasn't important to his goals anymore, he turned his back on him and went right back to bashing him the way he was in 2015. At least Giuliani stuck with his guy, unlike Mitch McConnell and them, who we don't like you, now we love you, now we hate you again.
Well, if you go back and you look, Mitch McConnell supported Trump when Trump supported what Mitch McConnell wanted to do.
Exactly.
And when he didn't, until it came out and said, I don't think that's a good idea, and it just never went anywhere. So Mitch McConnell was Mitch McConnell. I mean, again, term limits would solve the Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi issue, right? They are the exact same person on both ends of the spectrum.
Yes, they are.
So, they've been in politics forever. They come from a state and a section of the country where they will never be voted out. And the only thing that would get rid of them is term limits.
What do you think about a guy who is a noted plagiarist, a guy who almost had a political suicide 2 different times in his career? He's now the leader of the free world.
Well, they're all plagiarists, though. They're all plagiarists. None of them write their own stuff, right? And they just get up there and they're just puppets at that point when you get to that. You read what has ever put in front of you, Donald Trump being the exception, and that's probably why he didn't get reelected.
But isn't that what got him elected in the first place?
Maybe. It helped that he ran against maybe the worst political candidate in the history of the world.
100%.
You and I would have won against Hillary Clinton.
100%. Hey, Galen, where's the Bloodmobile today?
Hey, today we're out in the shores at the Walmart, so stop by and see us, and also come by the Boulevard right there at 1607 East Silver Springs Boulevard. Give blood, donate blood, please. We are in emergency need of everything.
And just remember, you can sleep a lot easier tonight knowing that Lil Wayne has been pardoned.
Yes.
See you, Galen.
Yes, we can.
Talk to you tomorrow,
All right,
buddy.
be good. Bye all.
Bye. WOCA, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
USA Radio News with Lance Pride.
The inauguration of Joe Biden is today in the nation's capital. Wednesday night, the president-elect addressed the nation.
To heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal. It's important to do that as a nation.
Breaking away from a centuries-old tradition, President Trump will not attend the ceremonies today. Hours after he's sworn into office on Inauguration Day, President-elect Joe Biden plans to sign 17 executive actions in the Oval Office. Plans to address the COVID-19 crisis, the economy, racial justice, and the climate. Biden plans